Once upon a time, two friends joined forces to bring you the best in horror entertainment. Brian from the north, Tim from the south, each bringing their own unique perspective to the horror community. Movie reviews, Blu-ray releases, beer pairings, games, and more. Welcome to your new home for horror. This is Civil Gore.
As you know, along with being horror fans, we're also huge Star Wars fans. So we're really excited to find out about our guest tonight's latest project. It's a Star Wars fan film called Forsaken Mandalorian and the Drunken Jedi Master. So here to talk about it is its writer and director, Anthony Ferraro. Welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going, guys? Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, going great, man. I watched the film today and absolutely loved it. I was pretty blown away. I did not expect such a great looking fan film, to be honest with you. You talk fan films, sometimes you think, there's some bad ones out there. There's some good ones. But I was really, really impressed with it. But before we get into that, tell us a little bit about yourself and, kind of what you do.
Yeah, right on. So my name is Anthony Ferraro. I'm a filmmaker, started off in theater in another lifetime. And then the past couple of years, I do a YouTube channel called createscifi. And, I've been making DIY no budget films for so long, and, I'm a little bit older, so that it's like, you kind of just develop your own way of doing it, right? Because there is no playbook for no budget productions. You just sort of have to figure it out. So I have lots of, the cliche, I have lots of tips and tricks. And then about 3 years ago, the whole thing is, how do you get eyeballs? How do you get viewers to your content? And then it occurred to me, like, I started watching all these behind the scenes making of videos of like web series and stuff, because I love them in feature films, but it never occurred to me for like web series or short films. And then I started noticing that the making of videos would tend to have more views than the actual production, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then so what I realized is, in building my audience, nobody was searching for, what's the next Anthony Ferraro film, but people were searching for, like, how do I make a laser gun, out of a squirt gun? How do I, I'm filming, I don't know how to edit. How do I edit? So I started doing tutorials, sharing all my sort of DIY filmmaking knowledge. And then I was able to build up an audience for that. So, that's the little bit about myself that I think is makes sense here. And that's sort of how this all came together, and really what I focus all my time on now.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's great. So obviously, you are a Star Wars fan like us.
Sure.
So, and one of the things I always like when we meet fellow fans and stuff, I always like to ask, what was your introduction to the world of Star Wars? I mean,
well, I think this would be hard to believe, but I saw it, A New Hope, in the theater when I was a little tiny kid. And
same with me.
Yeah, and it's like, it just like blew my mind. You know what I mean? It was like, my parents were not like movie goers, concert people at all. And I remember it was like one weekend I was with a bunch of kids, in the neighborhood playing, and the kid down the street's father just scooped up all the kids in the neighborhood and like took us to the movies to see Star Wars. You know what I mean? And it wasn't like his father was that kind of guy. It was just like, this guy was like, he had seen Star Wars and he's like, I have to take all these kids to see this,
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it was pretty cool. So yeah, seeing it, and I think definitely seeing it in the theater as a kid, like, definitely burns it deep into your brain for sure.
Oh yeah, no, I have the similar thing. Well, actually, it's funny when I first saw Star Wars, the original, New Hope, of course. I was my mom. I was at that point, my parents were divorced, so my mom had my babysitter take me, and I was being a defiant little brat, and no matter what, I'm like, I don't want to see this movie.
Right.
Took me in there, and I actually made her, and she was enjoying it, so I made her leave. But the thing is, my mom had gotten me, she heard all this stuff was Star Wars. So I ended up getting some action figures, and I'm like, I gotta see this movie again. So I begged my dad, he took me, and I loved it ever since after that. And like funny, you said like those magic moments of it. And I remember like I mean, I got my mom's boyfriend at the time. She gave special permission that I could leave school early to go see Empire Strikes Back on opening day.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. And Return the Jedi was my whatever birthday I had that year. That was the birthday party. We all went there. So I think that's why it's like the fans of like our generation that had that special moment way back then and could still like Tim, he gets to experience new Star Wars movies with his kids now. And he did that as a kid. So I think, so I love hearing stories like that. It was especially when someone has a similar experience.
Yeah. And I would just add, I think, just to put it in context of the times, at that time, that moment of the opening shot when the spaceship, comes in and it's like, oh, it's a spaceship. But then when it comes over your head, that was like, when people talk about like, it was never the same again, sort of, it was that like, what the heck just happened there? Like, it was just like, that was crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, let's get into your latest project.
Yes, sir.
This is called Forsaken Mandalorian and the Drunken Jedi Masters.
Yeah.
I need to hear what inspired the idea behind this movie.
Well, to be honest, it was COVID. So what happened was, I'm a filmmaker and I never had any desire ever to make a fan film or do fan fiction. In fact, I enjoy it. I'll watch it, but it never, as a filmmaker myself, I never understood investing all that time and money and energy for something that you don't own the rights to. It just never made sense to me. However, never say never. So during COVID on my channel, I make props and costumes. And so the inspiration was, I love the Mandalorian TV show, right? So all this stuff we were just talking about with New Hope, for sure, more than the last Abrams trilogy, was that the Mandalorian really gave us what we have been waiting for all these years, right? So the Mandalorian, I was really into it, and I had just gotten a 3D printer at the beginning of lockdown. And, because it's Star Wars, Mandalorian, there's all sorts of stuff online. So I just started printing all the props from the Mandalorian, and that was kind of like my lockdown project. I would make I made like the disruptor rifle and all this stuff. And then I started, because lockdown was like all of a sudden going to be forever, I found myself making the whole Mandalorian armor. And I was like, wow. And then as I was putting the Mandalorian armor on a mannequin to kind of wrap my head around it, I had this moment, because it's locked down, you're inundated all the time. And I was like, hey, wait a second. Like, this costume is full body PPE, like, oh, wow, this is interesting. And then I knew we were going to be like locked down for a year. So I was like, oh, I can make a Star Wars fan film where it's just outdoors, daylight exteriors, like desert, of course. And then, I live in Southern California, so that wouldn't be a problem. And I could just have scenes with two actors where the Mandalorian is in PPE. And I just had like a skeleton crew of like 3 of us, I think, were out there. And so the inspiration was not so much like a Star Wars story I was burning to tell, was like, how do I keep creative during a pandemic? And this is what happened.
Yeah, I have to say that costume though was so dead on. I mean, because obviously this character is not Din Djarin, or it's a different Mandalorian. But if you like looked at that without any kind of like context, and someone had that frozen on their screen, I don't think you'd be able to tell that it was not the actual Mandalorian. That's how good this looks.
Thanks.
So, so I mean, we'll give you at the end a chance to let everyone know where they can find this movie, because I think people would, especially after we're discussing this, is gonna be dying to see this, especially Star Wars fans, because it looks that good. I mean, it is like,
that was definitely a goal. That was definitely a clear sort of stated goal, because as you said earlier, the sort of quality of the fan films vary, and they're fan films, right? So that's, I kind of personally feel like they should be all like VHS cameras in the backyard if it's really going to be called a fan film, right? Yeah. But I think a lot of the ones that are just more fun and for the love of it, in my mind, when I talk to people, I say that it's akin to like community theater, right? It's a community theater production. So my goal with this was purposefully to have like real dramatic performances and sort of storyline, rather than like totally winking at the fandom, being like, oh, we love this so much, and just sort of sending stuff up, you know.
Yeah, no, it was really good. It was an interesting like little snippet of a story, and it's like and it actually, I mean, we'll get to this later because I want to find out some more about if there's, you know, what following, but yeah, I thought it was just such a good with when you realize, you don't even realize it's such a small little, essentially 3-person movie, because it's you get drawn into this, and the conversations between the Mandalorian and the Jedi, which you play, of course, excellently. We talked about that before of AR. You played that drunken Jedi master,
and that was part of the lockdown thing too. You know what I mean? Where it was like, just keep it simple and tight. What did I forgot? It was, you know, we were a pod, you know.
So actually, I'm glad you said that, because one of the next things I wanted to ask is, because obviously, you know, other than the obvious challenges of filming during a pandemic, were there any other, you know, kind of challenges that you faced that maybe you didn't expect?
Well, I mean, you know, it's always a challenge from the get-go when you're producing something with no budget. So the biggest challenge was, you know, we're surrounded in Southern California by all this beautiful desert, and you know, there's all these great locations, but because of Southern California and is savvy, like the perfect location I found was, I think it was out in Lancaster, and it had like all these beautiful rock formations and everything. And it was this ranch, but it was going to be like $5,000 a day, you know? And it's like, and then if you go out there, then you have to bring in an RV and a truck with power and, you know, bathrooms and all that stuff. So that was like, it was really challenging to find the location, mainly because, you know, you're surrounded by the location, you know. And I you know, I've been an independent filmmaker for a long time. I'm not afraid to just go shoot stuff, but when you're dressing people up in sci-fi and fantasy costumes, you really have to get the permits, and you can't just, you know, if you're doing something contemporary and everybody's dressed in street clothes, you know, go for it, you know. So definitely finding the location was a challenge. But what happened was, Jonathan Castile, who plays the Mandalorian, and his wife, Lisa Marie Wardell, who I also had as my assistant director, again, to make this unit tighter, they were staying in a house in Desert Hot Springs. So I went to visit them out there, and then I learned about BLM land. You know what BLM land is? So it's Bureau of Land Management. So basically what it is there's all this government land that's not a state park, but the government owns it. So you could do whatever the hell you want out there, you know? So it was like, oh, so this was kind of out by, I'm trying to think of what people would, it's kind of like very close to Coachella, like the Coachella Music Festival.
Okay.
It's like out that way. So it was like, so this land, I talked to the government office, and they're like, yeah, you know, so you could do whatever you want out there. However, the catch was, the difficult thing was, you can do whatever the hell you want out there. So, you know, this being America, there's lots of people out there shooting guns, right? So it was like,
oh gosh.
So it was like, that was a little unnerving. So it was like, so I purposefully shot during the week instead of the weekend, so we could avoid, you know, nobody was like crazy, but it'd be like, you know, it's land, and there'd be a couple of guys over there parked their car, and they're like shooting their collection of guns into the side of a hill, you know. But
so that's real danger there for, for the Mandalorian there.
But yeah, I mean, nothing was that challenging because there was, you know, 4 or 5 of us.
So was there anything that you wanted to kind of get in there, like a little bit of a, like, I know you kind of like you used the pandemic as kind of like the you know, the impetus to get this done that way, but was there anything you wish you could have done to add to it in there during that time, or like a little grander scenes or anything? Or
yeah, no, not really, because it's like, because I've made so many like low budget things, like I tend to conceptualize them very sort of tight, you know what I mean, like minimal characters and that sort of thing. I mean, it would have been nice to have real sets out there. I would have liked to have a real hut out there and built a couple of moisture vaporizers. Would have been That would have been pretty awesome.
It was a great set, though. It looked like I said, you cannot tell that it's not from the Mandalorian if you're just looking at it without a context, going in. So
yeah.
So Anthony,
without
giving, I'm not going to get into any spoilers for this, obviously.
Sure.
I was left wanting more. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
So do you have any plans to do any more shorts?
I mean, I absolutely do. And it's, again, because I sort of have the infrastructure of my site, createscifi, because I kind of have my site. So there is sort of a tent pole of what I do. If there's an interest, like if people want to see it, then I'll make more. I definitely have in my head what happens next. So I wanted it to end where it came to a natural end, but also, leave the door open to I think people are more used to that now, especially with like the Marvel movies and things like that, where it's like it feels like every movie is a trailer for the next movie.
Right.
So definitely want to do that. And it's like I've done 2 other web series, Galactic Galaxy and Zenith Run. And with those, I just produced the whole series at once and then release it all. And, human nature, what happens is, you'll get a ton of views on the first episode and then they die down as you progress through the series, So I felt with this, I'll just put this, which is standalone, or it could be a part 1. And then if there's an interest, if the feedback is people really want to see it and there's like the audience is waiting for it, because it was such a tight unit that created this, all the machinery is in place to just go ahead and I could, because I only shot this, I shot it in 2 days, you know what I mean? Like, that, and that's all I like to do on these shorts, so yes. Again, I keep giving you the long answer. Yes.
No, it's great.
Okay. Count us in for sure.
You already got 2 people that want to see more. And speaking of that, actually, so being, I think I might have caught some great. I know you said you didn't want to do really wink nods, but there's some in there. Maybe. Oh,
there's a lot in there. Yeah.
And I spotted a bunch, and being someone who's really deep into the lore of all things Star Wars, like some references there that maybe the average fan might not have picked up unless you watched everything and read the books.
Yeah.
Is there anyone in particular, you don't have to give the detail, but is there anything fans should look out for in there specifically without actually?
Well, one thing that was, I mean, if we can open that up a little, one thing that was really fun for me was when I decided okay, I'm going to make a fan film. I kind of had a moment where I was like, oh, wait a second. I just started embracing the idea of fandom, right? So there's actually, because it's a fan film and I can't monetize it, there's actually direct lines from other movies that are not Star Wars in there, which quite a few people noticed. I was surprised. And then there's a lot of so there's 2 or 3 films that I kind of wink to that are not in Star Wars. And I think that's a fun thing to because definitely the couple of people that caught on to that were like, whoa, wait a second, because I kind of had it in my head. I was preparing for this and I just watched a bunch of Sergio Leone spaghetti Westerns, and I was like, right, fan. So I'm a fan of those Westerns. So I use those for visual inspirations, which I'm sure the Mandalorian did as well. And I'm pretty sure even Boba Fett is originally based on what is it, The Man with No Name, or the Clint Eastwood character from those. And then it was like, right, oh, what else am I a fan of? And I started thinking of some of my favorite movies, and I kind of interjected some lines in there from that. And then there's certain things, where when I was kind of fine tuning it, there was other things where I'm like, oh, this might not be accessible to people who are not, deep fans, so I felt like I had to kind of explain a few things, so, but I think, I mean, the goal was to keep it dramatic, to keep it sort of not campy, but it's loaded with it's loaded with all kinds of nods.
I like it.
And lots of times, lots of times when we were doing the VFX, it's like you basically just go to the films and then you're like, it's kind of fun because it's like, oh, is it the prequels? Is it New Hope? Oh, what if we do like, like the spaceship is maybe a little bit prequel and a little bit Mandalorian TV show, you know what I mean? Like mashing up the different sort of moments in the history of the canon, or like maybe, it's all over the place. There's a couple references, I think, of stuff that's only in books or comic books.
Yeah, like some of that stuff. Like that's what I liked about it, because it was a little bit of everything, like a little bit of all the different movies, the shows, the books, and I thought you did such a great job of putting that in like that. It was like as a Star Wars fan, to me, I'm treating this as like kind of like a side canon officially.
Yeah. I mean, for me as a Star Wars fan, my favorite film as of now is probably Rogue One. And that's what I love about Rogue One, how it's just sort of its own thing. You know what I mean? Like they all die at the end, so they're not coming back, and I was really inspired when thinking about creating my own thing of like Rogue One, you know what I mean? Where it's like, I kind of have an idea where this exists within that world, that timeline, but I just kind of wanted it to be like its own side story. Because there's like lots of like fantasy novels that I like. I forget this one. I think it's Book of the Law or something. And it was like a 3-part series, trilogy. But then the author wrote a 4th book that was like in the main story, maybe they go into a tavern and then the story goes on. But in this 4th book, it's like we learn about the tavern owner for like 5 chapters, and I kind of feel like the Mandalorian TV show does that a little bit, where it's like all these peripheral things that we know. And it's like, like the stormtroopers come in on that character and that carrier at the end of season 1. And apparently that only exists as a toy.
It did. It did. I was hysterical because I remember seeing that toy was always like, that was one of the toys that always was in the store. You'd always see like hundreds of them stacked up at a Toys R Us because like
but it
wasn't something you had in the movie.
So back to what I was saying, like about originally never seeing myself make a fan film. I was like, well, if I am going to make a fan film, doing that sort of thing and creating your own story within sort of whatever the crayon box of Star Wars is, that was appealing to me.
Nice. Well, Anthony,
it was great.
Thanks so much for coming on. The film's fantastic. I know.
Thanks for having me.
I know the listeners are going to love it. I want to give you a chance to pitch the film and tell us where our listeners can see it, where they can see your YouTube channel.
Yeah, right on. So createscifi is my YouTube channel. So if you just go to YouTube and just type in createscifi, you'll find me. And it'll be the first thing that comes up on the thing. The film is Forsaken Mandalorian and the Drunken Jedi Master. It's a 10-minute Star Wars fan film. And I would just really appreciate people to just give it a chance, take a look at it. And if they like it, to share it, so that's what the whole thing is about, is just sort of trying to get it to catch a wave. And it was made out of a desire. It's so funny how life works. It was made out of a desire to just stay creative during the pandemic, right? That was my focus. And then you sit down, you're like, oh, this is one of the better things I've ever made, So I guess sometimes you just got to get out of your own way,
Well, we're huge fans, and we know, like Tim said, we know our listeners will love it too, because we have a lot of listeners, a lot of crossover, a lot of fandoms, we have a lot of Star Wars fans on there, so I'm sure they will they will love this. And I will say, any fans of the Mandalorian, this is on par. This is great, great little addition. It's kind of like a side story to the Mandalorian, so to speak. We'll say, so definitely check it out. We'll post a link, of course, in the show notes and everything, so people could we'll make sure they find it. And thanks for coming on. And of course, let us know you got any other projects in the works you want to pop on again. We're always welcome to come on. And,
I have a horror sci-fi coming up, so that might.
There you go.
Yep. I'll tease you with the title, The Sheriff of Rottingham.
Oh, nice. I
yep,
love
you're
it.
in. We're
Yeah,
gonna
you're
pencil
in.
you in already.
You just give us the time you want to come on, and we'll
Yep.
make sure we fit
You're
you
in.
in there.
Right on. All right, guys. Thanks so much for the kind words, and yeah,